As always, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Meresha Owiti. Let's get you informed. Now, the country has today bid farewell to Supreme Court Judge Mohammed Ibrahim, who is laid to rest in Nairobi. Justice Ibrahim, a towering figure in Kenya's judiciary, was buried at the Kariokor Muslim cemetery in line with Islamic rites. Leaders from the legal fraternity, civil society, and politicians as well gathered to honor a man remembered for integrity, courage, and unwavering commitment to justice. Bramwell Bwire has more.
In a solemn and emotional ceremony, family, friends, and colleagues gathered at Kariokor Muslim Cemetery to lay to rest Supreme Court Judge Mohammed Ibrahim, one of Kenya's most respected jurists. The burial, conducted in accordance with Islamic rites, drew members of the judiciary, senior advocates, political leaders, and members of the public, all united in mourning a man whose legal career spanned decades and shaped Kenya's jurisprudence. Former Chief Justice David Maraga, who worked closely with Justice Ibrahim, both in private practice and later at the Supreme Court, described him as a man guided by integrity and strict personal standards.
When I was here, I joined him in the Supreme Court. He was one of those judges who was diligent in his work. Justice Ibrahim was one man who never tolerated anything to do with corruption. He was a straight man, and he did his work very, very diligently.
Former Attorney General Justin Muturi also reflected on Justice Ibrahim's early years as a human rights advocate, noting that his work sometimes placed him at odds with the government during politically difficult times.
Values of human rights, some of which saw him in his early days as a practitioner get into trouble with the government of the day, earning him some detention in the process. But that never deterred him. Even when he joined the judiciary, after myself and left it, Judge Ibrahim continued to serve this country with so much commitment and dedication.
Justice Ibrahim made history in 1982, becoming the first Kenyan Somali to be admitted as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He later served in various judicial roles before his elevation to the Supreme Court. Bramwell Bwire, Ktn.
Moving on, President William Ruto today turned the spotlight on Kenya's minority and marginalized communities, hosting thousands of delegates at State House in Nairobi. In a colorful ceremony marking the International Day for Minority Rights, the president unveiled a R500 million scholarship program and launched a new national policy aimed at ensuring no community is left behind in the country's development journey. Listen in.
President William Ruto on Thursday hosted thousands of representatives of Kenya's minority and marginalized communities at State House at Nairobi during celebrations of the International Day for Minority Rights. In a colorful event marked by traditional attire and cultural performances, the president unveiled a 500 million Kenyan shillings national minority scholarship program to sponsor children from minority groups in accessing secondary and tertiary education. He described the initiative as a decisive step towards breaking cycles of exclusion and poverty.
Kuanzia sasa tutaweka hazina maalum ya milioni 500 kila mwaka ya kusaidia watoto kutoka jamii ya wachache.
The announcement coincided with the launch of the National Policy on Ethnic Minority and Marginalized Communities 2025-2035, which aligns with Article 56 of the Constitution, requiring affirmative action for marginalized groups.
Kupitia sera hii ambayo tumepitisha, sasa tutakuwa na mambo matatu ya muhimu. Ya kwanza, ile unit ambayo imekuwa ni unit ya coordinate mambo ya minorities, sasa itakuwa a full directorate katika ofisi ya rais. Jambo la pili, tuwe na sera ambayo inasema ni vipi wale wachache kati yetu, wale minorities kati yetu watashughulikiwa na serikali ya Kenya. Na jambo la tatu, tuwe na sheria ambayo sasa italazimu kila wizara, kila department, hata county governments, vile wale wachache minorities na marginalized watajumuishwa katika uongozi kutoka jamii marginalized, katika bursaries ya shule, katika bursaries ya college na bursaries ya university.
The gathering drew more than 5,000 delegates from 38 counties, including the Ogek, El Molo, Rendile, Nubians, Makonde, and Shona. Officials hailed the event as one of the largest state engagements with minority groups in recent decades.
Iyo directorate ya ethnic minorities na the marginalized itakuwa katika ofisi ya rais.
Observed annually, World Minority Rights Day promotes the right to ethnic, religious, and linguistic minorities, reaffirming Kenya's commitment to inclusion and equality. Vera Mura, KTN.
Thanks, Vera Mora. Now, State House is once again on the spot over alleged extravagance. The Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango, in her report says State House spent over 4 billion shillings in the first quarter of the financial year 2025-2026. Dr. Nyakango, in the National Government Budget Review report released, highlighted salaries, travelling and hospitality as areas where there was extravagance. KTN's Daniel Kariuki now reports on the latest from the Controller of Budget's report.
In the first quarter of the financial year 2025-2026, the executive is reported to have extravagance in their spending, going by the Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango's report. Nyakango has revealed that State House spent 4.5 billion shillings out of 3.1 billion shillings is listed as having been used for other expenses in the first quarter of the financial year. Nyakango, in the National Government Budget Review report, said that State House used 689.83 million shillings for salaries, 292 million shillings on domestic travel, while 199.2 million shillings in hospitality and 98 million shillings on fuel and lubricants. She pointed out in the report that State House used 55.1 million shillings for routine maintenance of motor vehicles, 3.43 million shillings for foreign travel, while 4.19 million shillings for communication, supplies and services, while it used 25.69 million shillings for utilities, supplies and services. The Executive Office of the President used 1.04 billion shillings, out of which 463.21 million shillings went to salaries, 49 million shillings went to domestic travel, while 8.34 million shillings went to foreign travel, and 275.1 million shillings was listed as other expenses. The Office of the President used 31.56 million shillings on rentals of produced assets, while 5.79 million shillings went to communications, supplies and services. 40.41 million shillings went to hospitality, and 12.35 million shillings went to fuel, oil and lubricants. The Controller of Budget said that the Office of the Deputy President used 425.8 million shillings, out of which 230.86 million shillings went to salaries. In the Office of the Deputy President, 44.45 million shillings went to hospitality, while 1.7 million shillings for specialized materials and supplies. 30.18 million shillings went to fuel. The National Police Service, on the other hand, spent 37 billion shillings, with the 22 billion shillings going to salaries. 8.7 billion shillings went to insurance cost, while 3.4 billion shillings went to what was listed as other expenses. Daniel Kariuki, KTN.
Moving on, President William Ruto appears to have engaged a high gear, with eyes firmly set on the 2027 presidential election. Beyond routine government work, the president has expanded his political engagements, moving from meetings with professionals to cultural arenas across the country. Is this inclusive governance or early campaign strategy? Grace Nganga reports.
President William Ruto's recent public engagements reveal a deliberate broadening of political strategy, one that goes beyond policy announcements and development tours. In recent weeks, the president has intensified meetings with organized professional groups, including teachers, medical workers, and chiefs.
Unajua, tuko na watu wanaongea maneno mingi. Sijui Ruto amewacha bottom up, sijui ameenda, sijui Singapore.
By engaging these groups directly, the president appears to be managing discontent. Opposition leaders have accused the Ruto administration of using these platforms to bribe influential groups to legitimize the government's agenda while masking unresolved economic challenges facing ordinary Kenyans.
Where will he say he gets the money to call 10,000 chiefs and assistant chiefs and bribe them with 10,000 shillings each?
Political analysts, however, offer a different reading of the president's strategy, one that tempers the opposition's accusations. They argue that any financial mobilization linked to these engagements does not necessarily have to come from public coffers, but could be channeled through the president's political party and allied structures, which are legally allowed to fundraise and organize political activity.
UDA, let's say UDA has a lot of members of parliament, and there is treasury money that you get. So because of their effort and getting a lot of members of parliament, MCEs, they receive funding from a lot of funding in millions from treasury. So that means they can be able to afford their campaigns in a way.
Kaluyu says the key issue is not the president's visibility, but the source of resources and whether clear lines are maintained between state functions and party politics. According to him, rather than focusing solely on the president's movements, the opposition should be sharpening its manifesto and engaging voters directly on policy, the economy, and governance.
I haven't seen their manifesto. They don't have, let's just be honest. They don't have a manifesto. And then they want to fight Dr. Ruto, who has a UDA manifesto and has development funds and also has money for the party from the treasury. How are you going to fight him?
The only plan you are catwalking around with is how to share a non-existent government.
From the Luopin Cultural Festival to the Tobonglore Festival, President Ruto has increasingly embraced cultural platforms, spaces traditionally seen as non-political yet deeply influential.
He is trying to reshape his political because he's a candidate, and therefore he needs to be able to show why he should be re-elected.
Still, the pattern is clear. President Ruto is laying political groundwork well ahead of the official campaign period, consolidating his base, testing new constituencies, and reshaping his national image. Whether this multi-platform approach will translate into votes in 2027 will ultimately depend not on appearances at festivals or forums, but on whether Kenyans feel real change in their daily lives. Grace Nyanga, KTN.
Away from politics now to a sad story. And 4 people have lost their lives after a boda they were traveling on collided head-on with a truck. The truck driver later fled the scene of the accident, forcing the police to launch a manhunt. The latest accident now brings the number of people who have died on the roads to date to approximately 4,682. Our reporter, Marion Barasa, looks at the human cost behind these numbers and stern warnings from the country's traffic department as Kenyans prepare to travel up-country for the festive season.
A late-night horror on the Nairobi to Namanga highway has left 4 people dead following a head-on collision near the Kajiado Low-Codes. The victims, a motorcycle operator and his 3 passengers, perished instantly when their motorcycle collided with an oncoming truck. According to witnesses, the deceased persons were all traveling on a single motorcycle at the time of the impact.
Tufuate tu sheria, tuende tu polepole, utafika tu, enda polepole, beba wale wateja ambao wanahitajika kwa pikipiki, overload.
The accident occurred under the cover of the darkness. Witnesses described a chaotic scene in the immediate aftermath, noting that the driver of the truck did not stop. A manhunt is currently underway to apprehend the individual whose identity is being processed through vehicle registration details. The accident comes at a time when the number of road fatalities have gone up by 5% this festive season, with at least 4,682 people being reported dead since the year began. The statistics are more than just numbers. They represent families shattered and lives cut short. Barely a month since NTSA listed drunk driving as one of the causes of road accidents, Embu Base Commander Maurice Njeu warned holiday revelers to avoid driving under the influence.
So we've organized for alcohol and the speed limits, and we are doing it. We are not only doing it over the festive season. That's a thing that we usually do most often, but this time around we've enhanced and we've increased the counts.
And as law enforcers announced strict road measures during this season, Embu Governor Cecily Mbarire recently commissioned a new state-of-the-art accident emergency unit at the Embu Referral Hospital.
This plan is a testament to our commitment to saving lives, reducing morbidity, and promoting culture of safety and resilience.
Marion Barasa, KTN.
Now, President William Ruto earlier today visited the late Cyrus Jirongo's home in Gigiri, where he condoled with the family. The president was received by family members as well as funeral planning committee members, including former MP Fred Gumo, former Vihiga Senator George Haniri, among others. Jirongo died early Saturday after his Mercedes-Benz vehicle collided head-on with a Climax bus traveling to Busia. A postmortem was conducted on Wednesday, which revealed the politician died from multiple chest injuries. Meanwhile, leaders continue to troop to the home to condole with the family.
There are many friends who will participate in us.
Tumepoteza kiongozi ambaye alikuwa tajriba ya hali ya juu, Mheshimiwa Cyrus Jirongo. Na kwa niaba ya wanakakamega wote na kwa niaba yangu na familia, sisi tunazidi kusema poleni sana familia ya karibu sana ya Mheshimiwa Jirongo. Msiba huu ambao tuko nao ni msiba wa taifa lote la Kenya.
Unajua hakuna kitu kingine ambayo tunaweza kupatia Jirongo. Jirongo was a very generous person. Alikuwa anatoa kila kitu. Na vile mnajua, Jirongo kifo chake kilikuwa kifo cha ghafla. Hakuna mipango yoyote. Na unajua sisi tunajua walio tunasema yule atakuzika ni yule yuko hai. Wewe mwenyewe huwezi kujizika hata ukiwa na nguvu gani. It is your friends who will plan for you.
Well, remember the clarion call during this festive season. Kindly be cautious as you travel up country and enjoy the festivities. We definitely don't want to lose more lives. One life is too many. Let's take a look at what tomorrow's edition of Kenya's Bold newspaper will be leading with. And we'll just take a look at the front page, which is all to do with that story that we highlighted a little bit earlier on, all to do with State House extravagance. And as you will shortly see it on your screens, the State House is on the spot following the Controller Budgets report that has highlighted the expenditure in this financial year 2025-2026, where State House has spent up to 4 billion in the first 3 months of this particular financial year. There is the headline on your screens. State House largesse, all to do with the extravagance, as I mentioned. Following last year's Gen Z pressure, President William Ruto announced new austerity measures on July 5th to cool public anger. He suspended plans to hire chief administrative secretaries, cut the number of advisors, scrapped budget lines for the offices of the First Lady, the Deputy President's spouse, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary's spouse, and pledged to end confidential budgets in executive offices while auditing public debt. A year on, the Control of Budget reports a different picture. State House alone spent 4.5 billion shillings in just 3 months. That's July to September, the first quarter of the 2025-2026 financial year. We've broken down the details, the expenditure in the Executive Office of the President, at State House, and the Office of the Deputy President. Find out how taxpayers' money was spent in light with the pronouncements to do with austerity measures. Are they walking the talk? Well, find out. Pages 4 and 6 have more details. Do make sure you grab yourself a copy of Kenya's Bold newspaper. Well, we take that short break right now. We'll be back with much more in terms of news making headlines. Do keep it Ktn Prime. This is Ktn Prime. Thanks for staying with us. Let's continue informing you. Now, United States President Donald Trump has expanded the list of countries whose nationals have been partially or totally banned from entering the United States, moving the number of nations from 19 to 39. 26 out of the 39 countries are in Africa. That's almost half of the continent impacted by the move. Some observers say this could strain America's ties with Africa, as Leangari now details.
United States President Donald Trump has added 5 countries to the list of nations whose citizens are banned from entering the U.S. The order made on Tuesday imposes full entry restrictions on people from 6 new countries, including Burkina Faso, Mali, South Sudan, Niger, and Syria, as well as Palestinian Authority passport holders. The White House says the restrictions are intended to protect the security of the United States and will come into effect on 1st January next year. Trump's administration has also moved Laos and Sierra Leone, which were previously subject to partial restrictions, to the full ban list and imposed partial restrictions on 15 other countries, including Tanzania, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, and Senegal, among others. Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, and a few other nations have been listed under partial restrictions category due to a high visa overstay rate. Tanzania's government says it will pursue diplomatic engagement with the U.S. and has since urged its citizens to comply fully with visa regulations. Trump has tightened immigration controls since returning to the White House in January. In a statement on the White House website, Trump said many of the restricted countries suffer from widespread corruption, fraudulent or unreliable civil documents and criminal records, and non-existent birth registration systems, systematically preventing accurate vetting. Some nations are also said to refuse to share passport exemplars or law enforcement data, while others permit citizenship by investment schemes that conceal identity and bypass vetting requirements and travel restrictions. Full restrictions and entry limitations of the original 12 high-risk countries will continue. These include Somalia, Sudan, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Haiti, just to mention a few. Partial restrictions also remain for nationals from 4 of the 7 original high-risk countries, and that's Burundi, Cuba, Togo, and Venezuela. The White House said the restrictions will remain in place until affected countries show credible improvements in identity management, information sharing, and cooperation with the U.S. immigration authorities. Leangari reporting for KTN.
Back in the country, a Nakuru family is in grief following the disappearance of their kin while engaging in illegal fishing at Lake Nakuru. 35-year-old Simon Mungai and his friend, only identified as Mwangi, are suspected to have been electrocuted by high-voltage power lines that are hanging dangerously across some parts of the swollen lake. Mwangi's body was retrieved yesterday, giving hope to Mungai's family that his body too will be recovered to give them closure. Ken Gashuhi with the details.
Joyce Wambui was inconsolable and still in denial as she stared at the still waters of Lake Nakuru, where his younger brother Simon Mungai is believed to have met his death while engaging in illegal fishing on Friday night.
Mama Simon, umetoka kwa maji. Ujitokesha tu tuache kukuwa na shida. Juu anatupea ma-stress, hata bibi yake anashindanga huku na mtoto.
35-year-old Mungai and his friend, only identified as Mwangi, were reported missing after they failed to return to the shows.
Ndiposa tukapiga simu kweli, tukasikia kwamba hiyo mambo ni ya ukweli, amezama katika ziwa la Nakuru. Ndiposa sasa tukafururisha moja kwa moja hadi hapa. Wakati tulikuja, tulipata kweli mambo ni ya ukweli, tukaenda kwa police station. Ndiposa walikuwa wamezama watu wawili.
On Wednesday, Mwangi's body was washed to the shores of the lake, with preliminary findings indicating that the cause of death was electrocution by high-voltage power lines whose pylons have been submerged within the swollen lake.
The electric wires are now hanging loosely about a meter or two from the water, and thus it becomes even dangerous for the illegal fishermen, since most of them do fishing at night, and they are not able to see the hanging cables, electric cables. The retrieve depot is suspected to have been electrocuted because of the nature of the body that was found yesterday.
Although there were no witnesses of the incident, for now it is believed that Mungai too met his death in a similar manner. His family now calling for support in search for his body.
Sasa mimi nalia kwa serikali iweze kunisaidia ndio hata sisi tupone roho. Kama ni kweli ameagia hapo ndani, tujue ya kwamba kijana yangu ametolewa na nimempumzisha.
Emmanuel Koech, the officer in charge of Lake Nakuru National Park, says that although measures to curb illegal fishing have reduced the vice, it is regrettable that young men continue to risk their lives in the activity.
But there are more than 5 bodies, more than 6 young men who are drowned in this lake since the beginning of the year. And what is paining most is that they are young men between age of 18 to 25.
Ken Gashuhi, KTN.
Now, one person was killed and at least 5 others seriously injured after a fierce fire broke out at a mattress-making factory in Makongeni area, Thika town. The inferno, which started at around 10 a.m., quickly engulfed the entire plant, reducing factory structures to rubble and destroying finished products and raw materials worth millions of shillings. By the time firefighters arrived, thick black smoke had filled the area as flames spread rapidly across the facility. Witnesses, including Julius Maina and Peter Ndenge, said the injured workers were rescued in critical condition and rushed to different hospitals in Thika and its environs for emergency treatment.
Pia nini zinaitwa mattress na carpet. Sasa kulingana na hiyo vile hiyo gas ilikuja ikalipuka, ndo ilifanya hizi vitu zote zikakuja zika happen hiyo design.
Lipuko ililipuka kutoka ndani kutokana na zile pipe za gas za ile machine, na juu machine iko na heaters zile za kuchemsha karatasi, iliweza kusambaza moto, iposa moto ikashika kiwanda yote.
Na ukiangalia nyuma yangu kuna mtungi uko hapo nje wa gas. Hata sasa ukisikiza kuna milipuko bado inaendelea huko ndani. Kwa hivyo magari zetu za zimamoto ziliweza kufika, lakini moto ukazidi. Kwa hivyo tuliita usaidizi ama tulitisha usaidizi kwa county government ya Murang'a na pia gari zao zikaja. Kwa hivyo kwa sasa tumeweza kuudhibiti huu moto, 80% tumeweza kuudhibiti moto, lakini tunaendelea. Pia kuna wale ambao walijeruhiwa wakapelekwa hospitalini.
Ile kitu tunaomba na watu wa fire, tutaongeza adad mingi, lakini vile wameleta maji juu hata moto iko karibu hapa, tuko na adad mingi zimeleta maji, na hiyo maji tumeweza kucontain hiyo fire.
Now, in a major shift in labor relations in the capital, Nairobi has become the first county in Kenya to formally institutionalize menstrual health days. Governor Johnson Sakaja's cabinet has ratified a policy granting female employees 2 days of leave every month to manage menstrual health. Our reporter, Marion Barasa, with this story.
The county government of Nairobi cabinet has approved a policy that allows all female employees to 2 menstrual leave days every month. The policy seeks to acknowledge challenges women face when undergoing painful menstrual period and support their reproductive health and overall well-being. The approval comes after medical studies showed that women between 65 to 80% experience menstrual pain. For a significant number of these women, the symptoms are severe enough to physically impair their ability to work. The studies presented to the cabinet revealed that women suffer from menstrual pain, clinically known as dysmenorrhea. For many, the symptoms are not just uncomfortable, they are debilitating.
If you are in pain, you cannot be productive.
But what does this mean for the day-to-day operations of the county? We spoke to a HR expert, Godric Arthur Itur. He emphasized that the success of the policy hinges on more than just a signature in the HR manual. He says sensitization of male colleagues is critical.
If you are a gentleman and you are actually in the office where one of your colleagues is on 2-day leave, we should be able to come in and be able to support them. Because if we worked together as a team in that way, we are going to ensure that productivity is optimized.
Nairobi County move follows Zambia, which pioneered the Mother's Day leave in 2015, which allows women in the workforce 1 day off per month without a doctor's note. Other countries with established menstrual leave entitlements include Spain, which offers 3 to 5 days of paid leave per month without a medical certificate. Japan allows for menstrual leave days for as long as it is needed. South Korea offers 1 day of unpaid leave, with employers liable to heavy fines for non-compliance. Indonesia offers 2 days of unpaid leave. And finally, Taiwan, which offers 3 days per year, which are not counted as sick leave.
It should be treated as it is because we know the reason why you are away. And again, this now removes it from being sickness. We need to normalize it. It's what we ladies go through, and it's normal.
As Nairobi transitions from policy to practice, the eyes of the country will be on City Hall to see if this model of empathy-driven productivity becomes the new standard for the modern African workforce. Marian Barasa, KTN.
Well, that's a step in the right direction, hoping more counties follow that lead by Nairobi County. Well, implementation is key, as they say. Moving on, the University Academic Staff Union UASU Nairobi chapter is decrying what it terms as interference in the management of university affairs. UASU officials have opposed the re-advertisement of the Vice-Chancellor position at the University of Nairobi, saying the earlier process of filling the vacant position had not been concluded. Catherine Emuraget with the details.
Solidarity forever.
Speaking at the University of Nairobi, UASU leaders faulted the decision to restart the Vice-Chancellor recruitment process, describing it as irregular and incomplete. They say the move raises serious concerns about transparency, accountability, and the legitimacy of procedures used to appoint top university officials.
We as UASU will remain vigilant in the defense of the integrity of the University of Nairobi, and we will forever remain the labor champions of our staff.
At the same time, the union has warned university management against what it terms as external interference in decisions affecting the appointment and removal of university chancellors. UASU insists that governance matters within public universities must strictly follow the law, free from political pressure or influence from outside individuals or institutions.
Any recruitment done in the public sector, in the public service, should be on the basis of merit, the basis of professionalism, not the basis of nepotism, not the basis of ethnicity, not the basis of political expedience, but people who will manage public institutions.
The union has also called for investigations into allegations that some lecturers at the university may be using fake academic certificates.
We need government to clean up institutions, public institutions, of these fake papers. How can you have people with fake papers working at the University of Nairobi?
The statement comes amid growing tension and heated debate over leadership at the University of Nairobi, a situation that continues to worry lecturers, students, and higher education stakeholders across the country. On Tuesday, the Public Service Commission announced through a newspaper advertisement the start of a recruitment process to fill senior leadership positions in major public universities. The process marks a fresh search for a substantive vice-chancellor at the University of Nairobi, more than a year after the sacking of Professor Stephen Kiama. Catherine Imuragit, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, that story leads us to a short commercial break. Up next, the latest in the world of business with Kelly Boss. Keep it Ktn Prime.
Good evening and welcome to Business Prime. My name is Kelly Boss and thank you so much for staying with KTN. Now, to stop the endless borrowing cycle, the National Treasury has confirmed it will begin putting the nation's crown jewels on the auction block by March. The gamble is the government is selling off profitable assets like the Kenya pipeline to stop the country's addiction to high-interest borrowing.
We are starting a national infrastructure fund. And this National Infrastructure Fund is going to get the initial capitation from the proceeds of privatization and divestiture. We are targeting about 600 billion shillings. Already we have identified over 300 billion shillings from KPC and divestiture of Safaricom alone. That will give us close to 350 or at minimum 300 maybe and 20 billion shillings. Then we will have to look for other sourcing of the rest of the amount. But we are not waiting. The moment we get these resources, we start the process. The process of crowding in private sector. And I've heard people saying, we are creating a private entity. This is not a private entity. There is nothing. This company is going to be a limited liability company which is formed under GOE, government-owned enterprise.
Now, Kenya's dream of made in Kenya car industry is facing its biggest test yet. While stakeholders in the North Coast have thrown their weight behind National Automotive Bill, they are issuing a sharp warning to the Parliament. Without major tax incentives, local car manufacturing will die on arrival. The irony, the government wants to slash reliance on cheap imports to create thousands of jobs. But experts argue that high taxes currently make locally assembled vehicles too expensive for the average Kenyan.
Hii teknoloji ya magari inatakikana tuanze kufundisha watu kutoka polytechnic, kutoka ma colleges, kutoka university, tuwe na watoto au wanafunzi ambao wamebobea zaidi kwa ujuzi wa huu magari. Na kwenye ma polytechnic na kwenye ma university na kwenye college zetu tuanze kuunda magari zetu kama sample cars. Hizo sample cars ndio kisha ziwe ndio zinakuwa manufactured, na hiyo ni process kubwa, na inatakana kama serikali iweze kuinvest pesa nyingi towards hii motor vehicle technology.
Naona kama it is over ambitious. Kuna mambo yatakakamilishwa kwanza yarekebishwe, kisha tuingie katika mikakati kama hii ya kupangwa bill yenye technicalities kama hizi. Naona kana kwamba ni tunatafuta prestige zaidi kuliko manufaa.
100% I support it. Unless somebody hajaelewa. Manake nimesikia wenzangu wakizungumzia viwanda, sijui viletwe nini, lakini ukweli ni kwamba inataka ku create job opportunities for almost everybody.
Now, for decades, the Chesegon area in West Pokot County and the border between West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet was notorious as a hideout for cattle rustlers and poachers. Armed criminals routinely ambushed passers-by in broad daylight and raided homes at night, shooting residents and stealing livestock. Fear, displacement, and ethnic hostility defined life in the volatile border region. Today, however, the sound of gunfire has been replaced by farm tools and irrigation pumps.
Our roadmap is we do alternative livelihoods like we are doing here. So we want to replicate along the Kerio to Baringo, along the Kerio ecosystem, and then thereafter we talk about truth and reconciliation.
We see this project as an opportunity to contribute to peace in one way or another, because we are going to have the two communities coexisting, engaging in business. We also see an opportunity for other groups to come together to set up similar farms and to engage in business and to abandon the conflict, the cattle raiding, and the animosity that was here in the region.
Now let's wrap up this business bulletin with the American dream, which is hitting the wall for thousands of Kenyan scholars, as new data reveals the first significant drop in US student visas since the pandemic. The core tension pits Kenya's academic ambition against Washington's national security first doctrine, with thousands' future hanging on the balance. Now, new data reveals a sharp 14% drop on students' visas issued to Kenyans in the first 8 months of 2025. Now, we've gone from over 4,500 students last year to just under 3,900 students today. While the wide world fights for a seat in the US classrooms, Kenya is losing its grip. We've been shoved down the leaderboard, now ranking 4th in Africa. West African giants West African giants are dominating in the field. Nigeria is leading the charge with 8,600 visas. Ghana has secured 6,100, and even South Africa has ended up past us. But that story right there of the American dream that's dwindling wraps up Business Prime. My name is Kelly Boss. Have yourself a lovely evening.
StarTimes is thrilled to unwrap the ultimate Christmas holiday experience.